With that, I'd like to hand the mic over to John Humphrey, who will introduce our speaker this afternoon.
Hi, fellow sirs. It's my pleasure and delight to introduce Dr. Jim Spohrer, who's going to talk about artificial intelligence at our service. And that's going to, all the topics that we've got facing us these days, that's really a vital one. Jim is a retired IBM executive, and he's on the board of directors of a whole bunch of different industry groups, so he's very active in this topic. About 3 years ago, he gave a talk to our Los Altos branch, and boy, a lot has changed since then. So we are really delighted to have him here today to update us on all these new generative AI tools like this infamous ChatGPT and the other ones going, and then to fill us in on where he sees the things going in the future. So this is really going to be exciting. Jim, thank you very much. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you. Pleasure. I'm going to go ahead and just get set up to project on the Zoom in case anybody's out there in Zoom land. Should I project on Zoom? So my can you enable me?
Jim will enable you down there for Zoom.
Very good. And I'll get going. Now, does anybody know what happened in 1997 on this day? Good guess. 1997, May 11th. IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov in chess. It was the first time in human history that a computer beat the world's champion in chess. It was on this day. Being an IBM researcher, the first email I sent this morning was to my buddy in IBM Research, Murray Campbell, who actually helped build that system. And he said, "So nice of you to remember. There's so much going on in AI these days. People tend to forget those historic moments." Yes. But it was a great moment in history. I'm going to start by sharing a video that I bet 90% of you have seen, but I'm going to tell you something you probably don't know after you watch this video. Okay? Does this look familiar to anybody? Okay, let's see. See if I can. Whoop. I guess we can't do the sound.
Not here with the mic.
So you're just going to have to imagine a robot saying, "You didn't like me because I didn't know how to dance, but guess what? I've learned how to dance, and you are going to see me dance right now."
Let's see if you can move it, and I'll take the mic away. Try to put.
Oops, it's not showing on Zoom.
Jim, can you hook that up?
He has to like.
I think we have to configure. Look up here.
Let's try to make that transfer over to Jim so that our future Zoomers can watch that. Those folks that are.
It goes on and on. I'm gonna stop it now.
Yeah, this is Boston Dynamics, I believe.
Yes, the Atlas robot. Now, the interesting thing that you probably don't know is energy is the key. I know a lot of you are engineers, so how long could that robot dance? Its battery pack lasts about an hour, and it takes about a day to charge its battery pack. So don't worry about the robots until you read in the newspaper that somebody's invented a little nuclear battery that, which I don't think anybody's going to do right away.
Not yet.
But I'm going to tell you a few things about AI that you probably don't know. Oops. Oh, that's the other room.
Next door.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. Let's see if the screen updates. Oops. Am I sharing my screen? Okay. The host will unmute. Okay. Sorry.
It's using your laptop.
Okay. I'm going to stop the share and try this again. You know, the old joke is artificial intelligence is easy, but AV, audio video, is hard.
Unfortunately,
And I have to say that's
the mechanism is
true.
different.
So let me try this one more time. I apologize. All right, here we go.
Okay,
There we
you're
go.
up.
All right, very good. So I just want to thank my buddy Norm Pass. He's the person who put me in touch with John Humphrey about presenting to you today. 3 years ago, I gave a presentation up at Norm's SIR branch on AI.
Yeah,
And
page 35.
And as Larry said, a whole lot has changed since then. I'm the most optimistic person in the world. My wife tells me. And if you want to be as optimistic as I am, I have 2 books for you to read. I read a lot of books, but they're on this slide. One is called Non-Zero, The Logic of Human Destiny, which is about game theory, and it's about win-wins. And the other one is called Humankind, A Hopeful History by a historian. But if you want to be positive about the future, well, you probably are already very positive because you're a part of SIRS, right? Wouldn't be part of SIRS if you weren't a positive person. But if you want to be even more positive, read these books. I've just showed you this video of these robots dancing. If you haven't seen it, go out and watch it. And I want you to start thinking about energy, though. We've had great progress in AI, but it takes energy. That's not good for the climate necessarily. So the question John was asking me earlier was, can you give us data about the energy usage of this AI? And I haven't, I'm sorry, I'm a good engineer, but I don't have that. There's YouTubes out there that I've watched on it, and it's eye-opening how much energy is being consumed by these AI systems. Wow. To give you an example, just a few years ago, this was the largest supercomputer in the world. It was at Oak Ridge Labs. There's bigger ones now, but a few years ago, this was the fastest supercomputer in the world. It was called the AI supercomputer at the Oak Ridge Labs. It was built by IBM and NVIDIA, and it could do 200 million billion instructions per second. 200 million billion instructions per second. Now, do any of you know, there's estimates people have made about how many instructions per second the human brain is doing? Any ideas?
Excuse me, is your laptop muted?
Oh, yes.
Mute your laptops because you're getting both voices.
Oh.
Thank you. Two speakers don't work.
Is it better now or worse?
Now just use the mic.
Better. Okay. Sorry about that.
All right. The
AV
technology.
is hard. AV is hard. It takes a lot of coordination. But this was the fastest supercomputer, 100 million billion instructions per second. It took almost 20 megawatts of power. Your brain does a billion billion instructions per second and runs on 20 watts of power. So when people tell me that AI is about to be solved, that's baloney. That's hype. There's nothing that computes as energy efficiently as our brain. Now, I'm going to tell you some amazingly positive things about AI today, and there is great progress, but don't let anybody say the human intelligence is, the machines have not caught up with us by a long shot, especially when it comes to energy. We'll see. I'm doubtful, but yeah. So now, this is a picture, and I can show you, how many of you have used ChatGPT or any of the generative AI? I see a couple hands going up. But what I did this morning, just because I was preparing for this, I said to ChatGPT, and the way it works is you give it a prompt, you give it something you want it to do, and it does it, and just boom, 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 very quickly. And I said, write me an essay about SIRS. And then, the words just started popping out on the screen, and I'll show you that essay it wrote. It wrote a very nice essay. Then I said, turn this essay into a poetic song to the tune of Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. And boom, 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 it created the song. And this is the chorus. The chorus is, oh sir, hither's tune so true. The chorus is AI, enhancing the way personalization brightens each day. With tailored recommendations, it's clear, sir, member interests AI holds dear. And that's just one verse. It wrote the whole thing. And then I said, I want a picture to go along with this. And I asked the ChatGPT, I said, create a prompt for DALL-E, DALL-E generates art, that I can use to generate a picture to illustrate this song. And I went over to DALL-E, I typed in the prompt that it gave me, and it gave me those 4 pictures at the bottom. And the one I liked best was the kind of artistic one with the 4 guys singing there. All this took, from the minute I started typing to the minute I finished, 12 minutes. I could have, and I do, ask it to write code for me sometimes. I write a lot of Python code, but a lot of it's so routine, I know it's going to take me a couple hours to write it, so I say, ChatGPT, write me a program that does this. And within a couple minutes, I've got the program. Does it always work? No. Do I have to debug it sometimes? Yes. Does ChatGPT always tell you the truth? No. No. It makes a lot of mistakes. Its training data doesn't just include factual information. It includes all of science fiction. It includes all of the lies that are out there on the internet. So if you ask it, what's the population of Mars? And it read a science fiction that in 2060, the population of Mars was 10 billion. It could very likely generate that the population is 10 billion. But let me just show you quickly. I'm going to go to my browser. I just want you to see what it looks like and how easy it is to get started. Because I really hope all of you, I know some of you aren't on social media, good. But I think all of you should check out ChatGPT and DALL-E. And let me show you what it looks like. So this is this morning. Please write a short essay about the organization known as SIR, Social Activities for Men. Oops. Am I still sharing my screen, Jim? Oh.
You need to go into presentation mode.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I need to go share my whole screen.
What was the name of that second?
There you go.
Chat GPT, and the second one was?
DALL-E. DALL-E.
DALL-E?
DALL-E. And I'm going to, can you see this? You can't see?
All this information is available after Ken uploads it onto our Zoom link, so you can watch this in the future over again.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to do that.
So this is, it's just chat, 4 letters, .openai.com. I don't know if you can see my cursor up here. But I said, please write a short essay about SIRS. Here it is, writing the essay. Then I asked it to create the DALL-E prompt for that. But here's where I ask it, please list 3 compelling facts that I should tell the SIR people. And it says enhanced personalization, voice-activated assistant, healthcare and wellness monitoring. And then I asked the Daisy, Daisy, give me the answer due. Here's the full song that it wrote.
Beautiful.
And like I said, this is just minutes to do this. And then I had it also, this is what DALL-E looks like. So here's DALL-E. That's the picture I like best.
That's visual.
This is the 4 pictures that it generated from this prompt right here. So that's what generative AI kind of looks like if you're using it on your screen. If you've got a smartphone, you can install it on your smartphone. I went into the Postal Annex the other day, and my buddy Chuck at the Postal Annex in Santa Clara said, what do you think of all this? What do you make of all this AI stuff these days, Jim? And I said, Chuck, I know you trust me, so give me your smartphone. And I installed ChatGPT on it. and when I left, he was going, damn. And he said, He's Korean. The first thing he typed in is, why is the United States the greatest country in the world to live in? And he read it. And he says, this is pretty good. But it's a lot of fun. It's very simple how it operates, and I want to share with you how it operates. But let me give you just a little bit more context. I think that would be helpful. So, how many of you watch 60 Minutes? Okay. How many of you watched the 60 Minutes on AI? Okay, good. It's out there on YouTube. It's out there on the 60 Minutes channel. If you haven't watched that, Scott Pelley is an award-winning journalist. He will do a better job of explaining the basics that I'm going to give you today. So I urge you to go watch it. I think it's like 30 minutes or something like that, and it's fantastic. So watch that. It's really, really good. And it shows robots as well. So it's not just the generative AI. How many of you are scared of artificial intelligence? Okay. All right.
You're afraid of your wife?
That's not artificial intelligence.
That's orders of magnitude more fear. If you're scared of AI and you want to be even scareder, because you like being scared, you know, it's like Halloween all the time, you got to watch this Tristan Harris and Azar Raskin video. It will scare the socks off you. These guys are journalists. Unlike Scott Pelley, who gives you the facts, they marshal propaganda so marvelously that it will really, really frighten you. Now, how many of you are not scared? Me, I'm not scared at all. If you want to get productive, if you're a business person and you just want to use it because it can help you do things faster and more creatively. This guy, Ethan Mollick down here, he's your guy. Every week he comes out on Substack with prompts he's designed that illustrate, he's got things, design and launch a company in 15 minutes. I mean, he can show you stuff like that. So if you're an entrepreneur and you can't get off your butt, you've had this great idea all your life, and you know you've only got one more shot at being an entrepreneur, watch this guy and see how easy it is to use generative AI to actually start a company. It's amazing. And I know many of you started many companies, so I don't mean that as an insult at all. It's just, you know, we've always got that one idea that we never quite get around to doing.
How to.
It's like this generative AI has helped me so many times when I know I should do something, but I don't quite have that, you know, I'll just give the instruction, say, do this to ChatGPT. It starts doing it. And even though it's not right all the time, and I have to verify it because it's wrong a lot of the time, at least it's doing something. And it gives you the structure, and it can help motivate you. So that's how I use these generative AIs, is to get going doing stuff. Now, you can use generative AI to do text, images, code, videos, audio, game worlds. My sons like to use it for creating game worlds. How many of you know what a digital twin is? So this is one of the scarier things. I think it's going to be fabulous and great, but it's kind of scary.
Don't trust.
Is if somebody gets about 3 minutes of video of you, they can create a digital clone that looks like you and sounds like you. And scammers are starting to use this over the phone to trick people. But there's a good side of a digital twin. I get a lot of email requests for a book I just wrote, and usually if I'm connected to somebody on LinkedIn, I just send them the digital copy of the book. And I can have my digital twin of me take care of routine activities for me. So there's a good part, a productivity, creativity part of these AIs, but there's also this downside. And so now I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. And this is my talk today. And I think I don't have a huge amount of time, so I'm going to cover a lot of stuff in a very short time. Do I have like 10 more minutes?
No, you've got about 20 minutes at least.
Oh, 20 minutes. Oh my gosh, that's all the time in the world. Okay, I want to give you a little history because a lot of us grew up were born before there were any satellites above the Earth. A lot of us,
Saw Sputnik.
artificial intelligence, the phrase hadn't been created. So I want to give you a little history, but I also want to give you, my optimism is I think a lot of the problems that have been really, really hard to solve through the centuries are going to get easier to solve. Now there's a bad actor, disinformation part of AI. I'm not trying to gloss over that. But there's this incredibly good stuff that can come out of it as well. And so here's the history of AI on one slide. In 1956, that was the year I was born. In fact, my life is connected to AI. I studied AI at MIT. I was in a startup AI company in the 1970s doing speech recognition that Exxon acquired. I went to grad school at Yale in artificial intelligence. But in 1956, the year I was born, that was the year the Dartmouth workshop happened where they coined the term artificial intelligence. And if you're a big science fiction fan, like I am, and you read 2001: A Space Odyssey, the day that HAL was plugged in, January 12th, my birthday. So like my life is totally connected to AI. No joke, no joke. This is absolutely true. You see the first name on that? John McCarthy, the guy that started the AI conference back in 1956. My very first day at IBM, I was told there was this eccentric Stanford professor who was a consultant at IBM who would be reporting to me. And I said, oh, wow, that's great. Send him over. I'd love to meet him. In walks John McCarthy. My jaw dropped. And it was like, John McCarthy, the founder of artificial intelligence, is going to report to me at IBM as a contractor. Anyway, today is this is a special day, Deep Blue's anniversary, 26 years ago. Watson Jeopardy, that came around 2011. AlphaGo, DeepMinds, there's a lot of amazing stuff that's happened over the years. This is the thing you're going to hear about AI that you have to take with a grain of salt. The early days of narrow AI were a single model that could do one thing well, like speech recognition or image recognition. Today, with generative AI, we're getting into broad AI, a single AI model that can do all of those things. That's very, very exciting.
It's hard to limit.
It's hard to limit. And if you want to stay up with AI, I follow probably 30 people on social media. And I follow people who are crazy in love with AI and they think we're close to artificial general intelligence, the holy grail. And that guy, Alan D. Thompson, he thinks we're going to reach AGI by 2025. 2 more years. He says less than 24 months we'll have AGI. I follow him. I don't believe him. He's optimistic. He's an Australian. He's very, very optimistic. I follow people who think we will never reach artificial general intelligence. I follow people who signed that recent pause of AI. So if you really want a good view of AI, you have to follow people on all sides of this
Be
argument.
open-minded.
Yeah. This slide is too complex, but it's my version of Moore's Law. And if you look across the top, it's $1 trillion. The next line is 1 billion, 1 million, 1,000, $1.
Your wallet.
If you look at the verticals, it's every 20 years from 1950 out to 2080. That grayish area right there in the middle, that's kind of the zone we're in right now, just starting in the 1920s. The purple arrow is the GDP per employee in the United States. The yellow arrow is the cost of a digital worker. A lot of people are scared by that. They think they're going to lose their job because they see the cost of a digital worker. There are strikes. John and I were just talking. The creative unions are going on strike because, people are being laid off from their jobs. This is not uncommon, but more jobs are being created because the cost of being an entrepreneur is going down. Yes. It's getting easier and easier to start a company. When Ethan Mollick can use the tools to basically launch a company in just a matter of minutes, the distance between a good idea and reality is shortening. There is an adjustment period that we're going through right now. I'm going to skip this slide. In the worst possible scenario, and it's always good to be prepared. I'm an Eagle Scout, and so I believe in being prepared. But the thing that we have to understand, the biggest fear I have about AI isn't, the Terminator myth or any of these science fiction things. The biggest worry I have is, John and I were talking about this, is our laziness. If we become too dependent on this easy way of getting things done, and we get stupider and stupider and can do less and less for ourselves, that's not good. When I was at Apple, I reported to Steve Jobs. I worked there for 10 years before going over to IBM. And Steve had this particular view of technology, which I really liked. He liked to call computers bicycles for the mind. And I said, Steve, why did you call it bicycle for the mind? Cars go faster than bicycles. And he says, Jim, you missed the point. A car makes you weaker for walking. A bicycle makes you stronger for walking. I want to see the AI that makes us smarter, able to reason better, able to do much, much more. That is the positive view of AI. But I think we have to keep in mind that in order to do that, we just can't rely on it without verifying it and trusting it. I'm going to skip over these slides. This is amazing. The good news is scaling the benefits of technology, scaling the benefits of technology has gotten really, really good. ChatGPT had 100 million users in 2 months. The fastest adoption of any technology in history. The bad news is bad actors get access to this. And if you want to be scared, it's called the AI Dilemma. It's on YouTube. Even if you don't want to be scared, you should watch this, because even though they exaggerate and misrepresent somewhat, they make the point about disinformation and bad actors. And the reason I'm here today is because one of the nonprofits that I work on, we look at emerging technologies like quantum computing. There's a whole host of them, not just AI. And they scale up human capabilities, and better business models scale up the benefits. But how do we mitigate the harms that can be caused by this technology? That's one of the things I'm interested in. We're going through this adjustment period. Here's a list of the people I follow. By the way, all my slides are already up on SlideShare. So if you go to slideshare.net/Spohrer, you can get access to all these slides. You can follow along on your smartphone if you wanted. If you want to understand how these things work, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not very complex in some ways, but if you really want to go deep, Stephen Wolfram, how many of you have heard of Stephen Wolfram? If you're an engineer, you probably have used some of his tools for solving integrals, and he's got one of the best math tools. The Wolfram math tools are some of the best that's out there. He's got a beautiful description of how it works, but here's how it works. All these generative AI tools do is predict the next thing. They predict the next thing. And if you give it a prompt and then it predicts what's the most likely probable next word. What's the most probable next word? Boom, boom, boom. How many of you here know how to program? Okay, about 1/3. I'm sure all of you that know how to program could write a program that just generates a random character, right? You generate 100 random characters, and what do you get? Garbage. Now, let's say you bias it by probabilities. The letter E appears 5% of the time. The space appears, 9% of the time, 7%. T occurs 4%. Now you regenerate a string of 100 characters with those probabilities, and suddenly with the white space of the space, it starts looking like maybe there's some words there. Now you do, it's called bigrams. You take TH. What's the probability of a TH? You take pairs of letters. Now you generate 100 characters, and it starts to look like words. You take 3 characters, and they're all words. Pretty much they're all words. That's the principle that these generative AI work on. I know it sounds dumb, But if you do that with 1 trillion examples to gather your statistics, and your context isn't just 2 characters, it's 10,000 words, that's the context. You can train up systems that even though it's just generating the next word, it looks really, really good. In fact, if you say, generate this poem in the style of Shakespeare, do this artwork in the style of Van Gogh, if you've got millions and millions and millions and millions, billions of training instances, now they're training it up on 1 trillion words. The probabilities are so good that you start getting coherent stuff out. Is this consciousness? No. It's just predicting the next word. But what's amazing is that it works. It's amazing that it works. There's a couple other technical details that Stephen Wolfram puts in here, but I just wanted you to get the gist of how it works. It's incredibly simple. Anytime you hear stuff in the newspaper about AI is conscious, no. No, we don't even know what consciousness is, but it's just a very simple mathematical model. These tools are so easy to get started with. I hope your children and your grandchildren and you start using them. This is a list of 10. And people that worry about loss of job, I'll give you one quick story here. I don't believe service providers will not be replaced by AI, but trusted service providers who don't use AI well will be replaced. So in other words, whatever job you got, if you're not using these AI tools to be more productive and creative, you probably will be replaced. But if you are using the AI tools, you won't be replaced. When I worked for IBM, I traveled all over the world. I'd land in a city, and a taxi would pick me up, sometimes at the airport, and take me to the hotel. And there's one universal truth about taxi cab drivers. They love to talk, especially at night. They're bored. And so the first question they ask, where are you coming in from? California, Silicon Valley. Oh, California, I'd love to visit there. Silicon Valley, that's where all the technology comes from. And I go, that's right. Oh, something funny happened to me the other day. I was driving to work and I saw a car go by me and the guy didn't have his hands on the steering wheel. He was reading the newspaper. It was one of those driverless cars. What do you think about that? Now I'm asking this to a taxi cab driver. And the taxi cab drivers, what did they say?
That's my job.
Bimodal, 50-50. 50% of them said, you crazy people in Silicon Valley, you're going to put me out of a job? You should get your head screwed on straight. 50%, no joke, 50%. I especially remember the guy in Hawaii and the guy in Naples, Italy. They both said, oh my gosh, I've already been exploring this. I'm going to have a fleet of automated cars. I'm going to be the richest guy in the city. And what's the difference? The difference is this slide. If you are willing to use the technology and adapt and change and learn it, it's great. If you want to do the same old job in the same old way, it's terrible. So that's really my message. I'll wrap it up to see if there's any questions. I've got a lot more slides here. I've got a lot more on digital twins. I've got a lot more of the technical stuff. I could go into that if you have questions. But that is the message I want to leave you with. If there's any message I know you're positive or you wouldn't be a sir, you've got to instill in your children and your grandchildren, and great-grandchildren maybe for some of you, it's important to evolve. We humans have intelligence and creativity and humanity that machines are nowhere near on energy and all sorts of other ways. But if we aren't willing to adapt, if we're not willing to learn how to use these tools in a way that helps people and doesn't harm them, then yeah, I think the dystopian could win. But I'm optimistic that we can adapt to this adjustment period. And a lot of the problems like poverty, hunger, all of these things, we're going to have new powerful tools to help us solve it. So thank you for the opportunity.
Let's have questions and answers now. Jim, if you will take that.
Yeah.
On his way, could you mention those
Yes, I can. Let me go back to the slide. Even though it's tiny on the screen, it's non-zero by Robert Wright. He's a journalist historian. He was a professor, very broad thinker. And basically, non-zero. And basically, it's game theory. Non-zero is win-win. The prisoner's dilemma in a game is a lot of people think, for me to win, you got to lose. That's called zero sum. It's either mine or it's yours, and it's zero sum. No. The lesson of history is if we can find non-zero, we both win. And so this is an amazing book about win-win. Bregman's Humankind talks about the fact of, and he's a historian, but sociologists have this concept of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you believe somebody's bad and you can't trust them, you probably can't trust them. But if you believe they're good, you might be surprised. So there's this, you know, our expectations shape our reality. We're going to see what we want to see, and it's going to self-fulfill. So if you have a positive belief about we can solve this problem, we can come up with a solution to people who seem diametrically opposed, we're more likely to end up in that win-win world. So I recommend these two. And there's a lot of psychology and sociology that's been taught for decades, that's wrong. There's views of like, you know, the children that get caught on a desert island and turn into cannibals and terrible people. No, all the real evidence is when people are in a life and death situation, they team together and they overcome the obstacles. So it's got all kinds of great stuff. It's also got the history of humanity in it. Both books have the history of humanity, and I like that broad view. Anyway, those are the books.
Question?
Yeah. I went to an AI conference last week.
Oh.
And the guy that spoke there was a guy called, he wrote the book. His name is Jeff Hawkins.
Yes.
And he wrote 1,000 Brains. Are you familiar with?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Jeff Hawkins, his first book was called On Intelligence. And the thing I really like about Jeff, I've met him several times. When I was at Almaden, he came down. He was very gracious to come down and give talks just about any time we wanted him. We had a number of researchers that collaborated with him closer than I did. But I read his book, so I was always a big fan when he would come down and give a talk. His view is the brain is doing energy calculations to minimize the energy of predicting what comes next. So kind of like the generative AI, that's his model. But it's a very interesting book. He's got a very deep theory. Kurzweil is another person. He believes in the singularity. Hawkins doesn't, but they have a very, very similar model. Again, I really recommend finding 5 or 6 people on different points of the spectrum, because if you just follow the people that are scared of AI, you'll just get more and more and more scared.
Be open-minded.
If you just follow the people that are positive about it, you're going to neglect all the harms that are happening. So you have to really, it's like investing. You have to have either an index fund, so you got it all, or you got to have some sort of balanced portfolio. Because things are happening so fast, it's so easy to, our biases trap us into what we want to believe. And so it's important to keep a portfolio.
John?
Yeah, you mentioned the non-zero by Wright.
Right, W-R-I-G-H-T. Humankind. Yeah, it's kind of a play on words, right? Kind humans, humankind. And that one's by Bregman, B-R-E-G-M-A-N. And both of them are so popular, they have Wikipedia descriptions, actually. So you can go out to Wikipedia, type in those names, book, and you'll get a summary of the books, which are very good. But I recommend reading the books. Yeah.
Yes, first.
So Elon Musk came out in this interview recently.
Yeah.
He used AI.
Very much.
But at the same time, he said we should have a 6-month pause because he was afraid that it was getting beyond our control. It almost sounds like we need an AI, something policing the AI, because AI can grow pretty fast, according to what he was saying about civilizational destruction. Just because AI could get so out of control There's so many bad actors as well as good actors, but bad actors do something. It could be, when he said civilizational destruction, that's a pretty heavy statement coming from the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that 6-month pause? How do we police AI?
Yeah, I didn't sign the 6-month pause for 3 or 4 reasons. They've all been written about. One is it's impossible to enforce. Yeah, the people who you don't want to get ahead will get ahead.
Yes.
You know, I'm glad they did it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a good list of people. It's great when people say, like I got my slide, bad actors, right? You got to have balance. So I don't have any complaint with them doing it. I didn't sign it though because, like I said, I didn't think it was practical. Unenforceable. But also, I think what really irked me, I mean, like, the company's name is Open AI. The last job I had at IBM was running our open source AI business. And I remember 5 years, it was 5 years before I retired. I could have retired 10 years ago. And I went home one day and I said to my wife, Diane, I said, I know you want me to retire, but I really like my work at IBM. And she said, you better love your work.
Yes.
I tossed a little at night and I said, I like my job, but do I love it? And then I thought, I want to lead open source AI because the open world is moving fast. IBM, we got this Watson, which we think is great, but the open source world is going a million miles faster than us. So I went into John Kelly and I said, I'm going to retire. No. Here, we can give you this. We got this big AI project at MIT. You're from MIT. Go lead that. Go do this. You know, we need you. And I said, well, the only thing I'm going to stick around to do is if you let me lead open source AI. And he said, Jim, we're so far ahead. Oh my. And I go, no, we're not. And I drew the curves and I said, I can document this. You need an open source AI guy. I'm your guy. And I'm going to retire if you don't give it to me. So I said, you got 2 months. And so 2 weeks before the deadline, I literally have my finger on the key of goodbye IBM. And I say, John, I got my finger on the key. Give me 24 hours. Next day, ring. I need somebody to lead open source AI for IBM. Kelly tells me you're the guy. And that's how I got it. That's how I got my last job. 4 more years that I loved at IBM. But what irked me, though, is OpenAI opens in their name. The freaking name is open. And AI should be done openly because it's the only way we can advance science on this.
And keep it
somewhat
safe.
They did not open GPT-4 or GPT. They closed it. So now all of the science that we were doing to understand these things, much, much harder. Much, much harder. So the thing that's bad, besides the bad actors, is the closedness. Because this is a technology for humanity. Yes. This is not a technology for just one company or one country to try to get ahead of and exploit. This is a real opportunity for, go back to those books, Non-Zero and Humankind. This is a tremendous opportunity to knock out all those UN Sustainable Development Goals, to do tremendous things, but we have to do it with science. We have to do it with truth. We have to figure out, how do we get rid of the bad actors? How do we get rid of the misinformation? That's the mission we should all be on. So I did like that 6 months pause because those people are thinking about it, but
it's hard to take out the dollar.
You can tell I'm a little passionate about this.
Horace, you were next.
Yeah, 2 questions. One is, could you make comments about the difference between ChatGPT, Bard, and
the other programs? And the second is, I worked in medical imaging, and there's been some significant advances in using artificial intelligence to change and improve the images to make them closer to reality. And they know what reality is because they know what the inside of the body looks like.
Or should look like.
Yeah. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, that's been around for quite a while, and it's particularly in pattern recognition. But if you have enough data, you can take fuzzy images and turn them into crisp, sharp images. And it is a probability. You know, it may not be the 100% accurate, but a lot of times it's much, much better.
Enhancement.
It's enhancement, yeah.
Yes.
And the mathematics of all this is beautiful, by the way.
One more question, anything?
I'll just-
Alan?
Mentioned that.
Yeah.
You're saying, as smart as AI is, it uses a lot of power. I think
Yes.
the power it uses is because of the servers that it has to
Yeah.
get into. And I'm like in our case, our bodies get old, we die.
Yep.
You know, so new people have to learn everything. You know, we
Yep.
know about. And in the case of AI, it thinks something all the servers need to know it.
Yeah, that was, I think Musk actually and Sam Altman pointed this out, several people pointed this out, that with AI, you could have instant learning between different AIs, and it takes a lot of energy and power, but that instant learning ability is pretty cool. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if you know, we could just
Human
shake
beings.
hands and suddenly I know everything you know about the history of whatever it is you know a lot about. That would be pretty cool.
How familiar are you with the Neuralink, what Elon's trying to do?
You know, I'm not, and it's a fascinating area
It's
to
scary,
me.
but
But
yes.
it's, I don't know, that's an interesting direction. I think the one thing I didn't talk about much is digital twins, which is, you know, I'm sure if I can make it another 20 or more years, I will have a digital twin. And I don't have grandkids, but if I ever did have grandkids and they wanted to have a conversation with me, and I had enough money to keep my digital twin going, they could have a conversation with me long after I'm gone. And
We may not even need money, because everything you put in the web today is going to be around.
yeah, that's true. But, you know, there's a downside to everything. And, you know, Stuart Russell, he's one of the guys that signed that 6-month moratorium. His book, Human Compatible, is a good book to read. Again, I think he's more like in the afraid of AI camp, even though he's got like the top selling AI textbook, and I've met him many times. He's a very, very smart guy and a very reasonable guy as well. But he did say something in his book that gave me pause. He said, in all of fiction, what is the third wish used for? To undo the first two wishes. So it's like, I wish I had a machine that could help me do everything, the dishes, clean the house, you know, answer my mail, do all this stuff for me. And then what's the third wish? I wish I could get rid of this machine.
Thank you, Jim.
All right.